Hello everyone, welcome back to Ganch's Menagerie. I am Ganch. So this episode is episode 2B, session 0 from a DM's perspective. This is going to be the Ganch perspective slash Lords of Ash perspective on this. So this is not going to be a you must do this kind of video because, this is the only right answer. This is going to be very high level and ideally supportive and pointing you maybe in some directions you want to go with to think about for your session 0 as a DM. And I'm more than happy to discuss things in granular if you got a particular problem or issue you're running into or things that you're kind of concerned about. As a DM, and or the other guys are more than willing to chime in too, I believe, in our Discord. I will be putting a link down below in the description for that. If you want to come check us out, more than happy to go more in depth there than what we are on this video. All right, let's get into it. I'm going to start this off with mental prep. If you're a brand new DM, I want you to stop right now and give yourself a lot of credit for wanting to get behind the screen. It is a very rewarding yet challenging experience to run a session and a campaign. And I don't think a lot of people take the time to go, you're a badass. You are a badass to do this. Give yourself credit. First thing you need to do before you start your session 0 for wanting to run a game. Definitely do that. Now, if you're a veteran DM, I have a favor to ask you. If I miss something completely off the wall that someone should be thinking about before they walk into session 0, throw it in the comments below, please. Just that way, we can help a new player or a new DM get a good start in the hobby or feel comfortable running their first campaign. So I want to touch on that session 0 is going to be a baseline across the board. This is not going to be the be all end all for your table. Things are going to come up. You're going to adjust, you're going to adjust, and things will evolve as time goes on. So please keep that in mind as we go through this video. This is just trying to help set the baseline for your guys' table to get you going. And I also want to touch on one thing that is a definite fact about session 0 or being a new DM itself. Pardon my French, but you're going to fuck up. That's fine. That is perfectly fine. That is perfectly fine because no one who is new has ever been perfect at anything in their life from the start. The important thing is how you come back from that mistake and move forward. If you get a rule wrong, maybe your players, if they're new, don't even know you got the rule wrong, or maybe you etc. Adapt. Keep moving. Drive the story forward. Keep moving. Deal with the minutia later, but it's going to happen. Let's just get out of the way right away, and we'll figure out a way to handle it. The other thing is, you are a member of the table as well. You might be the antagonist and the NPCs for the party, but you are still a member of the table, so your enjoyment is just as important as your player's enjoyment. So when you're thinking about setting up session 0 and before you commit to anything, I want to ask you to ask if this is sustainable for you as the DM to do long term. My own experience, my guys, we started playing when I was still in college or going back to school, and that's why we started playing fast and loose, was because it was just easier, and we play once a month because it was just easier for everyone involved, and I could sustain that. And we're still playing, but was definitely cognizant of that thought when we were doing our session 0 of not trying to make a promise, write a check I couldn't keep kind of thing, right? So we're going to come back onto that a lot. Well, not a lot. We're going to come back on that a few more times throughout this episode, but keep sustainability in mind for your own enjoyment and your own, so you don't burn yourself out either. So I have session 0 actual prep point or thought points or talking points broken down into 4 sections. We got the story foundation, we have the party foundation, we have logistics, and we have table culture. So we're starting off with story foundation. DM, are you running pre-made or are you running homebrew? Neither one of those, or neither one of those is better than the other. Just something to think about. Both have their own challenges and benefits, but what kind of story are you guys telling? What flexibility do you have? How much prep work's got to go into session? Do you have to read pre-made material, or do you have to build NPCs just in case for your homebrew session? Those those things to keep in mind when you are getting ready for your session 0, so you kind of have an understanding of how much time commitment you're going to want to put into this and what you can sustain. See, we came back to it already. So the other thing about that is the tone alignment. Is the story you're trying to tell going to be fun for everyone involved? Now, you're playing with other adults, right? So this isn't all on the DM. So they need to, they have their own responsibility to ensure that the table itself, because from my perspective, the table as a whole is a whole other character and player in the group. So the table as a whole, how are they on for tone alignment? Are they, sitting good, like everyone's characters are meshing well, or they have a plan for if their characters have a reason not to mesh well? Um, your personalities of your players, is everyone, everyone getting along, kind of thing? Is the tone of the table good so far? I mean, I wouldn't recommend just knocking on it or something like that, but you get what I'm trying. I hope you get what I'm trying to say around that. And then in your story, how are you going to handle consequences for player decisions, or excuse me, for character decisions? If your party of murder hobos, those who are new to the RPG, or people that play, or characters that um, go around and slaughter slaughter the townsfolk because they wouldn't sell them a potion for cheap, kind of thing. What do consequences look like? Are you my personal style is you can do whatever the hell you want, but there's going to be a consequence for what you want to do. So if you want to, kill the king, that's fine, but then his heir is going to come after you with the army, and you're going to have to figure out what you're going to do about that. Or whatever you want to do. Again, every table is different, every DM is different, but something to think about how you handle for your story. The party foundation. So there's a common trope that the four adventurers walk into a bar and a hooded stranger offers them a mission, and all of a sudden they start working together and become an adventuring party. That works, but maybe your players already knew each other before a session started, uh, or your characters already knew each other before a session started somehow, and they're tie in. It's something I would recommend maybe offering or seeing, asking your players if their characters know each other or if they have any history together. It makes less connection points to have to do, instead of 4 to 6 to 7, however many players you got, individual characters trying to go, well, this is why we're all going to work together on this in this adventuring party, and helps it streamline it a little bit to that first session to make things run smoother. The other thing to touch on here is session 0 is a playground for a DM to find hooks and little bits and pieces from a character's backstory, or things they're interested in, or what they'd like to do, or what they think would be cool to happen in the story, to help utilize later in session for player buy-in. Being able to reference back to a character's backstory with an NPC group, or to a location they're visiting, so they know more about the location because they grew up there, or they can make a check, etc. those little details can really add a lot to your players' enjoyment and to their buy-in for the campaign as a whole and the overall shared story you guys are telling together. And now we move into one of my personal hobby horse. I am a logistician by trade. Um, so, but logistics. It's not sexy, but it's important. What platform are you using, DM? Are you guys in person? Are you playing online? Are you playing a local game store? Are you playing someone's house? Um, there's options. There's so many options out there now. I know my group and I we run on Discord and we use Roll20 and D&D Beyond for ours. I would like to get them all back around a table again and actually physically play in the same room as them. Unfortunately, we're spread across not only the state that we all live in, Wisconsin, but one of us is actually even further south in Ohio. So it's not it's not as conducive to have an in-person session. But figuring out what type of platform you're going to run on and is definitely one of those things to hash out in your session zero. Another aspect that is unsexy but is important is scheduling and communication. So adult gamers have busy lives, and scheduling can be a major challenge, especially as we get older. Get more responsibilities, families, kids, spouses will plan events or things will come up that you want to go to that instead of session kind of thing. Um, so figure out what a healthy, sustainable schedule looks like for your group. I mean, it would be great to go back to the old days and play, every week, and keep driving the story forward and hanging out with everyone. But for a lot of us, that's not sustainable. So, what's a schedule look like, and how do we communicate that schedule or updates or changes or challenges or information? Is it email, text, Discord, a Discord page? Um, I mean, my guys and I use Discord for our primary platform of communication, and session actually. But again, something for each table they have to hash out on their own to figure out what works for them. So we kind of touched on this a little bit of adult gaming and scheduling being a nightmare at times, but it's going to happen. Someone's not going to be able to make it to session. Someone's just not. Life's going to get in the way. Sick kid, work, um, event that popped up out of nowhere, kind of thing. So, what does your absence plan look like for when a player can't make it? Do you reschedule the whole session? Do you continue forward the story and NPC that player? These kind of things to be hashed out between your table, just so when it does inevitably arise, you have a plan in place and you're not scrambling. I can highly recommend it. Um, the common theme between the Lords of Ash, I think, is the um, a dreamscape or a dream scene. My my Ashton is running Strahd for his table, and he had a player who couldn't make it to his second session. So this second session DM, oh, I give the man so much props. Decided to do a dreamscape and kind of give the backstory of the world through the dreamscape or the dream event to his players that could make it, to then have them, wake up and then fill in the other character and help drive the story forward, or help drive their story forward while still missing that player. I thought that was a really cool idea. I've done similar myself. If a player can't make it, I drive the story forward with the dreamscape and add a little more flavor to those that can to then add into game when we can get the whole party back together again. So, as you can tell, I am a miniature painter as my primary hobby. I like miniatures. Um, if I could play in person, I would have I would have minis out the wazoo and terrain and stuff on my table so my guys could actually visually see their characters, which I painted for them, um, running around the table and doing all those badass things they keep talking about doing. in the game and roll when they're rolling their dice. But maybe you're like me and you're online. So do you use just a Microsoft Paint? Do you use Roll20's application? Do you use what works for you? What works for you? Or if you're in person, do you want to use minis? Do you want to use a dry erase board and a marker? Um, there's a lot of things, a lot of options to be available of, but I guess whatever you're comfortable with, and however much what you can invest or want to invest in it to help with the immersion and the flow of play is something to think about and consider. You don't have to go all out crazy expensive, or you can if you want to. It just again goes back to the personal choice of what's comfortable for you as a DM. So let's talk about the really important thing: snacking and beverages. So if you're in person, who's bringing snacks? Do you have Rhoda? If you're online, are you cool with people? You have set times of when bathroom breaks, stuff like that, for going to get snacks, or if you're in person, you guys all have a meal together. Because you got to eat. If you're playing for a while, you're going to want something to snack on and drink. And if those drinks happen to be adult beverages, I I don't drink heavily anymore like I used to, but there was one night I actually drunk Gonch gamed. I ran a session, and the guys had a lot of fun. Um, Doing a lot of things because drunk Gonch didn't care, or tipsy drunk Gonch didn't care as much as sober Gonch would have. Um, Something to be cognizant of. Again, if you're all playing with an adult table and everyone's 21 and up, you know, are you okay with alcohol at the table or not? It's just something to consider, something to think about before you, so everyone's on the same page, kind of thing. So the last topic we're going to kind of dive into here is table culture. I'm a little bit biased. I really think that the Lords of Ash table culture is pretty damn good myself, but I also really like the dudes I play with, and I've known them for a while. So at this point too, I'm gonna want to highlight something that when I was prepping for doing this playlist, I asked my guys questions about what kept them in the hobby, when they got started, how what was important to them, what kept them in, etc. And a common theme of what good table culture looked like was if they asked a question, they weren't made to feel like idiots. Um, they were welcome. They liked the people around the table. They could have fun. They could laugh. But that was the one thing that stuck with me really hard was no one made them feel stupid when they didn't know something. And DM, I ask you if you have new players at your table, give them the same experience. Um, this can be a lifelong hobby that gives a lot of enjoyment to people and a little bit of escape from the harshness of our reality. Um, but at the same time, a really bad experience can put someone off it for their life. Let's let's all work together and try to have those good experiences outweigh those bad experiences. So other aspects of table culture to consider are your rules and how you guys are handling your rules. Do you have house rules? Which rule set you're using, kind of thing. Again, I referenced Dungeons and Dragons 2014 edition in this playlist, but this staying high level so this can be utilized across any tabletop RPG. Ideally, is the goal here. Um, but just make sure everyone's on the same page because there are a lot of good systems out there. Just again, 2014 D&D is what we utilize because it's one I know the best for when we started running, and it works. So another thing is if this, particularly for the in person, this is a little more prevalent, but we'll touch on this for the digital side of it. Well, for those that play online, paper versus digital. Are you okay, or is the table okay with having running everything off, phones, apps, doing whatever not at the table, or do you want to use pen and paper? Pen and paper is the classic. It does limit on people being bored during combat and just scrolling through whatever not, or having a text conversation instead of paying attention to the game, which can also lead to um, slowdowns of sessions, but every table is different. Every group is different. Digital wise, if you're digital, if you're using a platform like Discord, how much off table chat do you want, or uploads to this, your chat you're using, etc. Um, just being kind of aware of making sure everyone's on the same page of, okay, like this is, if we're in a session, we want, are you going to be a session only, or are you just kind of hanging out and just, whatever happens kind of group? Just something to think about. Balance. So when I say balance, I mean not only balancing characters but also players. As a DM, you kind of fall into a management role, as it were, for the table, because you are the ultimate end authority of the table. Um, so some player and or character personalities don't mesh well together, or some players really like the spotlight and don't want to give it up as much. Ensuring that everyone understands what balance looks like for your table, that everyone has a chance to shine, saves a lot of hassle and heartache when it comes to the next topic, which is conflict resolution. So kind of like you're going to fuck something up that's given, and that's fine. Conflict is going to happen. Something someone's going to disagree on a rule, or there'll be a schedule conflict, or insert reason here, right? Conflict is going to happen, but asking, figuring out between your players and your table, and you as a DM, what you're comfortable with and what you can sustain, of how conflict resolution looks like, can help save your table, honestly. Um, because knowing that, hey, if we disagree on the rule, we roll for it, or we disagree on the rule and DM's word is law, and we'll for the session, then we'll come back to it later. You can focus on what's really important, which is telling a good story and having a good time with people you want to hang out with. So, of almost all the things, I think conflict resolution is one of the most important ones to have in place by the time you are ready to run your first session. And again, to reiterate, or to go back to what we said in the beginning, this is a baseline. It will evolve, it will change. Um, but having that baseline there to work off of is going to be really beneficial for you, because it was for me. So we're rambled on you for a bit here, and let me just make sure the mic is still on, because this is the third or fourth time I've recorded this, and this one time my mic wasn't on. Um, the ultimate end thing I want you to remember here about the table culture piece is have a good time and tell a good story with people. I've said it before and I'll say it again. Gaming does a lot for me personally, and my overall mental health. Being able to escape from reality for a while with some people I enjoy spending time with, really, really helps me. Um, and that's the important thing. It isn't about the rules. It isn't about, which mini looks better, etc., on the table, or what dice roll, whatever. It's the people around the table and sharing a good time and telling a good story. That's really what's important here. So I hope when you're done with your session 0 and you have that in mind, when we go into session 1, you go into your session 1, that's able to happen for you. But I have rambled on for a while here now about this topic. If you've made it this far, I really appreciate you watching. I hope you found something that was helpful for you, and I'm looking forward to getting out episode 3, which I'm still not sure on the topic yet. But if you are we've touched upon anything you want to know more about, and you want to talk about a little bit further, again, the link to our Discord is in the description down below, or leave it in the comments, and I will reach back out to you. Or finally, I'm not. You can tell by this, I'm not really chasing the algorithm here. I just want to try to make the hobby easier for someone than it was when I started. Um, if you found this helpful and you feel like you want to recommend it to somebody, please do. Please do. Um, yeah, that's about all I'll say for the YouTubey stuff. But until next time, may your dice roll well and your paint flow smoothly. Thanks, y'all.